Hello everyone, Jester Bell is back, and I have unfortunately seen Antman and the Wasp: Quantamania, and it is garbage. It is a garbage dumpster fire of a film, and here I am going to deter any of you who haven't yet seen it from ever watching this complete waste of a person's time movie. So let's get into it and talk about how I am with the state of Marvel right now and why the MCU is for sure dead at this point, and I don't see a way that they can salvage this. So Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is the third installment in the Ant-Man trilogy, and it's supposed to be about them venturing into the quantum realm and meeting the villain called Kang. Now, the big thing about this movie I want to talk about first is how it handles the characters, because that's what we're all invested in when it comes to Marvel. Regardless of if the movie's good or bad, we're invested in the characters, right? Well, despite this being called Ant-Man, this is not really an Ant-Man movie, or a Wasp movie for that matter, or both of their movie, even then. Scott Lang, it feels very much carried along by the plot of this film. It begins when they're all pulled into the quantum realm through a character who, MODOK pulls them in. MODOK is terribly used in this movie as well, but we'll get to that later. But Scott Lang has no real character arc in this movie, and he doesn't drive the story in any way. He's very much just dragged along by everything that's happening in the plot. They start off with making it sound like he's become very cocky and disillusioned with saving the world, just more interested in himself, but they don't do anything with that. They just reveal it later, as after his family rips into him for thinking that he doesn't care anymore, they later just admit, no, Scott really does care. And he doesn't go through any kind of arc. He just always cared about the world, despite everybody saying that he didn't all of a sudden. So that's, I know that sounds sparse, but that's what they give him in the movie. He doesn't really, this is not really his movie. It's not really a story that develops or progresses his character in any way. Meanwhile, like I said, Hope Van Dyne, she's supposed to be this Ant-Man's Wasp. She gets maybe like 5 lines in this movie. She barely does anything. She's just kind of there. There were a couple moments where they seemed like they tried to make her do something, because they were like, well, we have to make her do something. She is the Wasp. But it's like she was just baggage in the film. And it's like, why is it called Ant-Man and the Wasp? Hank Pym, by the way, he's the other Ant-Man, also has barely anything to do in the movie, and when he does get one thing to do, it feels more obligatory, like, well, we gotta do something with Hank. He is very much dead meat in this movie. Like, he just sort of agrees with everything and goes along with everything. For example, Cassie has become a bit more of a delinquent, as we see in this movie, but Hank just kind of brushes it off, and he doesn't have opinions on that. And Janet, as we had some infidelity against Hank in the quantum realm, but Hank, once again, just kind of brushes it off. He's very much a dead piece of meat. Now, I mentioned Janet, and let's get to that, because the real characters that get focused in this movie are Janet Van Dyne and Kang. And the only reason why Janet Van Dyne gets so much screen time is because she's there to build up Kang. But now that I've told you about how the characters in this movie are kind of incidental, and they're not really, the main Ant-Man characters are incidental to the plot, and they really don't actually, the point of this movie is not to develop them. Well, so what is the plot of this movie, and why should anyone care about it? Well, the plot all has to do with building up Kang. Half the movie is just sort of Janet being quiet and sort of being very nervous when they are pulled into the quantum realm. Apparently, she was so traumatized by what happened in the quantum realm, she decided to never tell anybody that there's a civilization down there, that they are terrorized by this guy called Kang, that she once almost helped escape, but then found out the true person who was behind Kang. And so all of that is just to build up Kang, and it takes half the movie to where we even get to him. They call him, and they build him up as this super, super powerful, dangerous guy. And that's a huge problem, because when we meet Kang, he is so, so powerful until he isn't. One minute he can do anything. He's telekinetic. He can force people to do what he wants. The next minute we find out he can't shrink things down in order to rebuild a part of a ship. One minute he is a character that no one can defeat. The next minute he is defeated by ants. That's the kind of person that they've made Kang out to be. This guy is supposed to be their next Thanos. He's supposed to be the character that you want to really be scared of, and you want to be excited when he's on screen as a villain. But no, he's not a clown like he was in Loki season 2, but he is made stupid because the writing is so bad. And in addition to just the character inconsistencies and the writing being so bad, that sort of thing just is throughout the entire movie. For example, when we see Kang get a scene with Janet, it felt like the first good scene in the entire movie, where it was being taken seriously, where we were getting some development on him, we thought, but it is interrupted by stupid things like, oh, the way Janet figures out that he's evil is by touching a device that lets her see his memories because this is his ship. And it's just ridiculous. It's so contrived. Later on when they speak, Kang asks Janet why she turned against him, even though they had been fighting apparently down there for almost 30 years, and he only now just asked her that question. It's so ridiculous, and there's so many things in this movie that are just contradict each other, don't make sense. The characters don't get any more progression or development. They ruined Kang, which was the whole point of building him up. But then throughout the entire movie, you can't even get invested in any of the drama because they are just slapping in jokes. I think that this is the worst Marvel film in terms of jokes because they're not really jokes. You can tell very clearly that they were corporate mandated quips that they said, put this in the movie, here, 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 and here, and we don't care if it's funny or not. We just got to make sure we break the tension because nobody wants a Marvel movie to be so serious. I didn't laugh once at anything in this movie. I was completely straight-faced because none of it was funny. This movie just fails on every level in terms of the characters it uses, in terms of the story, in terms of the villain, and in terms of setting everything up for the future. Another thing they try to set up for the future is Cassie Lang, a character who they've changed now, not just in terms of 3 actresses now playing her, but in terms of what her personality is. She's now a juvenile delinquent, but that's made out to be a good thing just because she's supposedly protesting for positive things like a lack of housing after Endgame, and that's from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I just rolled my eyes at that because I'm like, why are we still on that sort of thing? And she's been in and out of jail, but they kind of just brush it off because they say it's for the right thing, and which they shouldn't approve of. They shouldn't want Cassie to be like her parents, her dad. Scott Lang was criticized in the first film for breaking the law if it meant to do the right thing, and so, but Cassie gets a free pass. Cassie's character is really built up in this film as just being great at everything. She's the one who builds the device for the quantum realm, and even though that gets her into trouble, she's told it's not her fault. She apparently is right to be a protester who's going in and out of jail. She is right in terms of wanting to get involved in the quantum realm instead of just escaping. And later on in the film, there's MODOK, and MODOK is one of the most destroyed character adaptations from comics I've ever seen. They didn't even try to make his character work. They just turned him into a joke. The joke that he has a big head, which is one of the worst things in the entire movie that keeps coming back. And they just keep turning into the joke that he has a big head. And eventually in the movie, Cassie gets a moment with him where she smashes him, and it's just like, you don't need to be a bad person. He's like, okay, and he saves everyone, and they continue to make fun of him after that because he's just a joke. Like, not only from the characters in the movie making fun of him, but from the movie just not caring what he does or if anything is inconsistent. And that's another example of how everything Cassie does has to be perfect, and she has to be the one to rally everyone. And you could have done a great story here about how Cassie had become a very different person than she might have been because she was off on her own for 5 years, and that maybe she and Scott don't understand each other the way they used to. And then there's a heartfelt moment of them, hugging each other at the end, but there's no build up to it. And I'm like, why didn't you use the arc of how they had grown apart, and maybe throughout the movie the theme is them getting back together again, because their relationship has really been the heart and soul of the Ant-Man franchise. But they don't want to use this movie to close out the Ant-Man franchise or leave it on a nice note. They want to use it to build up Kang. They want to use it to build up the Young Avengers with Cassie. But I gotta tell you, it used to be bad before when Marvel would try to bait another film after a bad one. But at least we knew, because Marvel was hit or miss before, that there might be a good film on the horizon. But now it's nothing. It's just miss after miss after miss. And so I was feeling a bit insulted at how much they were baiting me. Like, oh, Kang, is he really gone? I'm like, you've been giving me bad film after bad film after bad film. There's nothing I care about anymore. And you're still expecting me to watch every Marvel movie or watch every Disney Plus show. I was thinking about the old films that Marvel used to put out, like Winter Soldier and Civil War, and the first Avengers. It is unrecognizable now. the old Marvel and new Marvel are just completely different things. It used to be good science fantasy movies, or at the worst, average science fantasy movies, and now just complete and utter garbage. I can't believe it. And I'm not going to watch Loki. I'm not going to watch the Marvels. The last film from Marvel I have any interest in is Guardians 3, and that's just because it ties up the last bits of Infinity War. But even then, there seems to be a curse on Marvel films right now. I don't even know if that movie is going to turn out. And, I hope that people start seeing these movies less to send that message so that we can stop getting Marvel characters just absolutely destroyed by these films. So that is my review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Don't go see it. I would give it a 3 out of 10. Thank you for watching the channel, and I will see you guys next time.